So in this lesson, I want to take a look at the 6W questions, driving questions, and the inquiry cycle. And these are very important skills and concepts that will help you in your independent research projects in this course. First, let's start with an Irish proverb. Questioning is the door to knowledge. And I really believe that when the questions are your own, as opposed to a question that is put to you by a teacher, then you're going to learn a lot more. They're going to be your questions, and then I think you're going to have more ownership over that knowledge. So in this lesson, really what I want you to pick up is just some basic questioning strategies and habits of mind that will lead you down this path or through this door. All right, so first let's look at the 6W questions. And these are sometimes referred to as the journalism questions, right? Who, what, when, where, why, and how. And how has a W at the end, so it's one of the 6 W's. Really what I want you to think of this as is a brainstorming strategy, but it's brainstorming in reverse, right? Usually when we brainstorm, it's write down everything you know about a subject or everything you think about a subject. This is brainstorming with questions, right? So what I want you to do with the 6W questions is just set a timer on your phone or on the stove in the kitchen or something like that and write down, who, what, when, where, why, and how, and then write as many questions using those words as you can within 10 minutes. Now you may need to repeat this right away, or you may need to repeat this at various points during the project. So the 6W questions, just a way to get your brain flowing and get you engaging with those questions. And from those 6W questions in that process, as well as some of your early research, you're going to develop a driving question. Now the driving question is the single question that your project, research study, or essay will answer. Right? It is the most important question in your whole project, right? And if I come to you or somebody comes up to you midway through your project or more than midway through your project and asks your driving question and you can't answer that, chances are you're just flopping around and you don't know what you're doing, right? A single driving question really is the steering wheel for the whole project. And so very often the answer to this driving question is your thesis or main idea. And again, you should be able to get that thesis or main idea down to one sentence. If I come to you, somebody else comes up to you a week before the project is due and says, what's your thesis? What's your main idea? And you can't answer that. That's a big red flag. So early on, you really want to develop your driving question. And this is probably going to come from one of your 6W questions or a combination of all of them. So while you're using your 6W strategy, again, either at the beginning or later into the project, be alert for the one question that will form your driving question. And so the next step here is the inquiry cycle. And this is a really, really busy diagram. So I encourage you to pause it now and read through this very carefully. Okay? And, there's no logical starting place to this cycle. Perhaps you start at connect, perhaps you start at wonder, perhaps you start at investigate. I think it would be best if you start at wonder there in the upper right-hand corner, but you can really start anywhere. And notice that the arrows go backwards and forwards. And if your brain is anything like mine, those arrows go across the middle too. But perhaps that would make this diagram even busier. But remember, research is a messy process, and you've got to be willing to go forwards and backwards and side to side and crisscross and all over the place. But if you keep your 6W questions in mind, and if you keep your driving question in mind, this will become much more manageable. So again, let's return to this driving question, right? You're going to go through the entire inquiry cycle to answer your driving question. And like I said, sometimes you go forwards and backwards, sometimes across. Remember that research is messy. And that can be very frustrating for students who just want to move through their schoolwork in a very linear fashion, in a very simple way. They don't want to think too much. They don't want to work too hard. Research can be very frustrating for these kind of students. And if you're one of these kinds of students, I think you're going to go through a big change this year. Because you've got to be willing to get messy, get down and dirty. These are your ideas, your questions, and you've chosen your own topic. So this really should be something you're passionate about. If you're not passionate, you're just going to have a boring life, I guess. And throughout this, invent your own methods of, answering your driving question and going through the inquiry cycle. I'm going to teach you some methods, and by and large, these are the methods that I like, but they're not the only way to do it, and you need to adapt them, and eventually you're going to develop your own research methodology. Everyone's a little bit different here, and that's part of that messiness. So again, be willing to get messy and be passionate about your work and ask good questions. That's it. Thanks for watching.